Black hair has been under attack for decades, and there's no sign that things are going to let up. Just recently, the U.S. military issued a new ban on twists, dreadlocks, and braids bigger than 1/4 of an inch. It's a move that many argue unfairly targets black women. And then there's the story of the 12-year-old Florida student. Her name is Vanessa Van Dyke, and the school threatened to expel her. They called her natural hair a distraction, and they ignored the fact that she was the target of bullying because of her hair. It's stories like this, and countless of them exist, that illustrate the public's contempt for black hair. How do we move past a society that operates like this? Joining me to answer that question is Michaela Angela Davis. She's an image activist. Jamila Lemieux is senior editor at ebony.com, and Gia Lowe is co-founder of Curly Girl Collective. Gia, your organization is actually holding Brooklyn's first ever natural hair festival. It's this weekend.
Yeah.
You all have to make sure you check this out. Why a festival? Why now?
Why not? Well, it's the perfect time. It's the time for the community to come together in something that is all about the season, all about natural beauty, all about natural hair, all about the togetherness of the community. The natural hair community has had lots of segmented meetups and meetings and gatherings, but we thought, why not bring everyone together? We've been locked up all winter.
No pun intended.
Locked up, right?
No pun
You knew how many hair puns I had to take out the teleprompter before we started. It was crazy.
No pun intended. So it's the perfect time to do this.
Wow, you mentioned the natural hair community. There are a lot of people who are watching this right now who are going to say, what's the natural hair community? I didn't even know such a community existed.
Oh yes, there's a whole network and whole orbit of women sharing information via tutorials, via channels, via social media platforms. Naturally Curly is one of the largest platforms in the media that shares this with the community of women that are hungry for this information. Textured hair, multicultural women are all hungry for this. So there's a community that's feeding us, and we're growing it organically.
Absolutely.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Like if people haven't heard that there's a natural hair community by now, I don't know where they've been. Like, I mean, no, really, you don't even have to be a natural girl to know that this community is vibrant. And the business part of it is really amazing. Like, for instance, there are YouTube stars, and these are women and men sharing information with each other because an industry had largely ignored them, right?
Yeah.
They've been segregated. You had to like go into the hood to get some pink lotion, but now the industry is fighting to keep up with the community. So it's a real game changer. They're trying to stay with the folks instead of them dictating, right? So I think that's a huge game changer. And in May, they had, there's an international meetup day, because they've been doing these meetups for a long time. It's like little salon groups that have grown to be hundreds. I was at a conversation with Taryn Guy, who does Love and Learn Your Hair.
Yeah.
There were 500 women there to talk about, and there were people outside. They couldn't get in. It was like Michael Jackson or something. People are hungry. The women are hungry. They look amazing. And what's great about these meetups, you see hair styles and creativity that you don't see yet in the media, meaning most natural hair or natural hair girls have this sort of loose curls. They're kind of closer to a Euro aesthetic. If you look at the ads, hair looks more like mine or Jamila's. But these women do everything from Lupita, with little Caesars and cuts and shapes and sizes. So the creativity is so expansive at these meetups that you don't really see anywhere else.
No, absolutely. And the need for the meetup, I think, is interesting because there are people who don't know what black people, and particularly black women, go through when it comes to hair. When people see public policies, about, no braids, no locks, no twists, people are like, well, companies have a right to do what they want, dictate what they want. They don't see how that's particular to black women. How would you respond to that?
I think it's important for women to find community or to seek community where they can find it. And hair has become a place where we're able to, find sisterhood and bond with one another. And we've been doing that in beauty shops, since the days of the hot comb from the stove and the braiding salons. And, even though I think the world has gotten a lot more comfortable with black hair, it's still consistently under attack. There are, special rules that are made for us to keep us from being too creative, too beautiful, too liberated, too comfortable in our own skin. So I think it is important that these meetups and these communities and these groups exist. And not everyone who's natural participates in them. I don't. not because I'm rejecting them, but because I was raised to be natural. In fact, I would have had to go outside of the house to find cues to go straighten my hair. It was something that I wasn't really allowed to do, and I was discouraged from doing it. But for women who are not used to hearing the idea that your hair, as it exists, as it comes out of your scalp, is not only fine, but it's perfect and it's beautiful, to find that in a peer, or somebody who's maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years older than you and just a little bit more seasoned in the natural hair game, we've just seen it be so transformational and so healthy for Black women.
There's a comment coming. I want to get your response to this, Gia and Michaela. Rocco Flag and Eagle writes in and says, the girl in the school issue knew the dress code when she signed up for the school. She broke the rules intentionally. Right? Let's step aside from the particulars of the case, and let's assume she did break the rules, right? Whatever those rules are. What does it mean to have a society that has rules against hair as it grows out of your head? Because that's the problem, right?
And the distraction piece, which is so funny. But I did want to get to the policy thing because it's one of the things that led me to having natural hair or not relaxing my hair anymore. When I was pregnant, I asked my doctor if there were any FDA regulations around relaxers because I never wore my hair straight, but I texturized it, Jerry curl thing. So I just ran a relaxer through it, right? So there are absolutely no regulations. There's no FDA, and these are like really intense chemicals. But with bleaching and permanence, which means to make curls in your hair, there was tons of research. So that proved to me like there was no one looking out for Black girls' hair. We were all using these products, but they were unregulated. Anybody could buy them. Anybody could use them. When I found out that there was no data, I just didn't, risk it when I was pregnant. So there are unprotected things around this, and it's still not regulated. And there is some neurological damage that can happen from using relaxers, not so much on participants, but from practitioners that are in their kitchens or whatever, and they're breathing these fumes in. So I think that there are some real legal and systemic things around our hair that have caused this otherness and this desire to make it straight. And just for those who don't know, there's an actual book, Hair Story by Ayanna Bird and Lori Tharps, that really lets you know that our history of our hair, that we're connected to something, that that we have a story. And I think the otherness and the distraction comes as people don't know our story. So and our hair kind of locates us as a community, it locates us closer to our African roots. Our hair is our signal, right? So the further we are from this Eurocentric aesthetic, or the closer we are to it, the more comfortable people are to us, and the further we are, the more uncomfortable or distracted they are by I think, the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And they just don't know.
Agreed.
How hard is it to create a public understanding of the beauty of Black hair, given the history?
Good question. And I'll wrap that into the question about the rules, which I wanted to touch on.
He keeps doing these great.
I mean,
Yeah, I know.
It's right.
Well done.
Thank you. The rules. I think there's something to be said about that, because I think that those rules unfortunately exist even in an unspoken way in the professional arena. I recall when I was transitioning into just being natural, I went from relaxer to natural, and there's a number of different ways that you can do that, but I was in a completely corporate setting, and I remember it being so much a focal point of conversation, even in an introduction to a client once. I was, hey, this is Gia, and she's doing something with her hair. And it was kind of like, oh, so it needed to be explained, because maybe there's a rule that if you're going to take her seriously and realize that she's about whatever.
So someone else introduced you like that?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. To our client that we had been working with, or, right. So it was, so I say
like apologizing for you? Is that what it felt like?
It felt like he needed to explain that I had broken a rule.
Wow.
If I want to apply it to this situation. Exactly.
Okay.
And I had to process it quickly in that moment and respond.
I'll process it.
You know what?
You can't stop now.
You can't stop.
I'm sorry.
You know
I'll
what?
let you
But they're all good though. They're all good.
It's good. She's firing them off.
Quick.
So about the rules. So it is definitely one of those things that it exists. There are some rules as far as now this student that's going to school with just her hair existing. For that to be a rule, a game changer and a rule breaker now, that is where the debate is. You said, how hard is it for us to bring a community together to realize the beauty in natural hair? Interestingly enough, we're in a position where we're so hungry for this information, and there's so many of us kind of like, wait, it kind of looks cool. They're interested in it. So it isn't so much about the difficulty as it is the keep it up.
Yeah.
Let's keep the fueling it, the feeding and the nurturing it, the realizing that our hair defies gravity. It is the bigger the hair, the closer to God. And there is just so many different ways to realize that it's beautiful and continue the movement, continue inspiring each other.
Comments coming in from the HuffPost Live community. I want to read some of them up here. Bring them up for me, yeah. Helio says, people are ready to accept natural hair, such better than older times, but kind of hard to find a job. I want to put a pin in that because I want to come back to what it means to be able to try to find a job or to get into school or to be able to get certain levels of access to social organizations based on that. A crazy girl writes in and says,
Crazy girl.
I'm glad that I decided to go natural. It's the best decision I've ever made. Truth Hurts says, Black Americans are stigmatized. America in general doesn't accept Black men or women's hair. A Black guy has to keep his hair under 1/4 of an inch to be acceptable, and Black women are expected to have relaxers to fit in with society as much as possible. Sarita Teresa responds to the earlier comment and says, the girl in Oklahoma went to a school where the administrator was a weaved up, relaxed Black woman. I know we got a couple pins here. I want to deal with that too, because I want to talk about sort of the politics of non-natural hair. I don't want to say unnatural, non-natural hair, and what that means as well. Kenneth says, schools still enforce rules that are just for sheer oppression. They do not make sense. Hair, piercings, and so on are regulated to a ridiculous degree. If our government cared as much about the country as they do people's hair, we would have a utopia. Now, Rocco writes back to you all and says, if you don't like the rules, don't go to the school.
Rocco's trolling Marc.
The school.
No, he's not though. Sarita Teresa writes back though, because this is a popular opinion, and I think I think it speaks to white privilege in a certain way, and I'll tell you why I say that. She writes back. Sarita writes back and says, dress code shouldn't require burning the hair or applying chemicals to it. So I think the challenge, Rocco, is that these aren't just rules. These are rules that require you to do things that are unhealthy for you. There would never be a set of rules that would require white people to burn their hair, to cut their hair unnaturally, to apply some sort of chemical to it that's against their best health interest. No, there will be no hair or dress code that will require them to do that because we assume that hair looks a certain way, and that standard is the one by which we measure Black hair.
And I think the media really, I think I'm very, very encouraged by social media and what that has done. It has forced the conversation into mainstream where people who now, there are no gatekeepers on the conversation. I think that's really what has advanced things. People writing stories like you do on Ebony and all the bloggers and stuff. But I feel like this idea of otherness and why people aren't comfortable with our hair because we don't have enough examples of it in the media. I think having Lupita on the cover of Vogue is like people are having a moment. Like they're just like, oh, this is because it's not just her skin tone. Because I think a lot of people focused on that. She has short, natural hair, right? That she is creative with. There's also that that it makes you masculine, or she's putting diamonds and cuts and all kinds of. And we don't have enough of that. There are so few women in media or that anybody else has seen who has natural hair that they don't have a place of reference for it. Even Black folks, it's not, because Rocco could be a brother.
Right.
There's a lot of resistance from Black people too. Like you said, that woman had a bunch of plastic hair sewed to her head and is telling this little girl whose hair looks like a big fluffy flower, right, that she's not right. So there's all these roots, I'm doing my own now, jokes, of tangled roots of how we feel about our hair. We haven't had enough chances to love it openly, publicly, on a silver screen. We don't see it enough.
But it's that lack, Jamila, of normalization of Black natural hair that makes me not let white people off the hook, but say, wait a minute, maybe they don't realize that it's far more natural for your hair to be locked than it is for it to be perm. If I just sat here and did nothing, my hair would look a certain way, and it wouldn't look like Al Sharpton, right? No disrespect to Al Sharpton, but I'm just saying. But when they look at Al Sharpton, they may say, well, that's just regular hair. You know what I mean? Maybe because there aren't the images on the screen, maybe because there aren't the images on TV and magazines. When most people think of Black hair, they think of straight hair.
Right. Yep. And I think that's where we have to, not just as media personalities and writers and people who are part of a natural hair movement, but just as Black people in general, we have to make a decision that we define culture. We don't want this culture to define us. And if we are saying that we're rejecting the notion that for a child or a woman to be acceptable, they have to burn their hair, then we have to commit to that. We can't say, well, you would just look a little bit more polished, or if you're going on a job interview,
code words.
you have to, you have to, just acquiesce to what their expectations are. If you're trying to get into corporate America, so what's more important, making a stance about your hair or having a job? And those are real decisions that we do sometimes have to make, and sometimes that compromise.
And by we, you mean black women?
Black women and black men.
But now, I guess what I'm trying to remind, with all due respect, white people, I'm just trying to remind you, this is stuff you don't have to consider. Like, you never have to consider. And Kenneth writes it and says it. He said, do Caucasian girls get told to cut their hair because the ponytail is too long and distracting? No. Because we assume that's just what hair looks like.
That's just what hair looks like.
And I think back to why these meetups are so helpful, because there's also ways in which to make your hair sort of polished, and that, like, you see women with locks that do chignons, like even a more kind of tamed version of that looks very professional. So that's also some of the things that people trade, is like, how do I not chemicalize or process my hair and still walk into the courtroom in a way that's not distracting? And speaking of journalists, like, I was feeling a way, the cover of New York Magazine with the First Lady of New York City, they referred to her as having braids. And she has locks. So I'm like, do your like, if you don't know what her hair is, find out.
There's nothing wrong with having a black friend. Find a black friend.
Or
ask questions.
Or Google it.
Right.
So there was it was a big cover story. And the fact that she said that she had braids, I was immediately, like,
why was
moved
she
by
mentioning it?
Well, because that was a cover story. She
describing-
just described her. Like, she was, brown with braids, and, because she looked beautiful on the cover. It was a gorgeous photograph, but they have no reference. They didn't even know the difference between locks and braids. And so those little cues, too, are it's the lack of care that you get concerned with. And so we see it over and over again, so we have to keep putting in, we have to keep self-correcting.
I'm sorry, I'm getting frustrated here. Rocco, I'm going to respond to Rocco one more time, because I really think there's a teachable moment. I actually don't think he's trolling. I think he just, I don't. And even if he is, it doesn't mean that he's a proxy for other people who might not be. Rocco writes in and says, you don't have to burn it, Mark, cut it, referring to black hair. Here's the point.
Marc, that's trolling.
No. I think his point is that there are rules, and that you don't have to perm it. You can just cut your hair so that it's not long. But I want y'all to do something. Can y'all pan? Hold on. Can y'all pan out there? Can y'all show the newsroom? Can we get a shot of the newsroom?
You see the super long hair?
Just scan some of the white women in here. Just seriously.
Under what circumstances would she have to cut her
under
hair?
what? Look at all every white woman in here has hair down their back, and no one has ever been told to cut it.
Mark, every white man in here also has hair that's significantly longer than yours.
That's my point. But if I would have just not do it, you can come back, because I don't. If you would, y'all can come back. I like attention. So if I would have just do nothing, if I would let my hair grow as long as these men here or these women here, they would just say my hair would naturally lock. You know what I mean? It just would. That's what my hair does. And if it were, they'd say it's a distraction. I need to change. I either need to cut it or straighten it or something else. That is because my hair grows naturally different than white people's does. But we've normalized that, so seeing a white woman with hair down her back is considered normal. And it's fine. I'm not saying it's not beautiful. I'm not saying it's okay. Do your thing. I'm just saying that black people's hair grows differently, and we have to have rules for that. Otherwise, we have, for whatever reason, created a racialized policy, and that's the challenge. Let me pivot a little bit, because I want to ask y'all a question.
Cut it. Damn, I'm still stuck on that.
That's how people think.
That's a pretty significant thing, because particularly for women, cutting is not. It's just not. Just cut it. I think the thing
that was a little girl, like, for real. If you're a little girl and you have hair like that, it's traumatic to have your hair cut if that's not your choice, right? So the fact that would even be an option for an adult to think that a little girl with a big old happy flower in it would have to cut her hair. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on that.
Of black women and children does not matter to us.
Look at
I
this.
think that's what it is.
It's a little girl.
I think Rocco needs to start at the root and talk about the rule. It's the rule that needs to change, not her hair.
Right.
That's what Rocco needs to
But I think that
get
I think that a lot of white folks really are so rule oriented that they don't. That's why we improvise, right? Like, that's why we have jazz. That's why we have hip hop, where the rules get to be bent and then brought back in. And rules make them comfortable, right? So when we do things that are outside their rules, they get really uncomfortable and want to yank us into it. Where this natural sort of, I did it again, need to express and be creative and use our, this is part of our history. That's why reading hair story is really important. When you go to the museum and you see African headdresses and they're in shapes, that was mimicking hair that people actually did. We do this as a way to self-express, as well as it being just the way it grows out of our head. So because they don't know about us, they don't know what they're looking at. They don't know that they're seeing us not be rule-driven, right?
Right. Especially when the rules
are stupid.
Right. They have the rule because the rule doesn't affect them. It's basically if you look different than us, then you have to do something different. Charing Ball writes and makes an interesting point. Hampton University's business school, Hampton University, HU, their business school's ban on dreadlocks for men proves that black men should not be excluded from the natural hair movement. It also speaks to the way in which black institutions and black organizations, not just white people, black institutions also value this. I want to pivot though.
And cornrows. It was
locks and cornrows. Yeah. Let me pivot though, because I want to ask you all a different question, and that is, what do you say to people who say, at some point though, that hair is just hair, that we might do ourselves a disservice by only valuing natural hair, that part of being a free black person is having the ability to straighten my hair if I want to perm it if I want to do something different when I want to, and it doesn't mean that I hate myself, because one of the critiques, of the natural hair movement is that we create a blacker than thou idea, right, that if you don't have natural hair, something's wrong with you.
I think that is a perspective that people do hold, yes, and that every woman with natural hair requires a fist in the air and a bow, and that's not necessarily the case. For those that feel like it's just hair, they feel connected to that feeling. So be it. And for that, you can adorn it and do different things with it as you please. For others, as we're expressing here, there's a more connectedness to the root and to the point of it. But no love lost if it's just hair, true.
I also think it's important if hair for you is not deeply emotional or spiritual, that's fine. But you can't ignore the impact that hair has on other people's self-esteem, for better or for worse. So when you go 30 years and you don't see a single black woman who looks like you or a black man who looks like you on the cover of a magazine, anybody's magazine, anywhere, that does something to you. When all of the little girls on the Disney Channel have a certain aesthetic and, yes, she's black, but she's light. Yes, she's got natural hair, but it's wavy, silky, curly, loose curl.
Yeah.
That does something to you. And so it's not for anyone to dismiss the very realness of this moment and just the stories that we've heard from people talking about what it means to burn your hair.
So let's take burning out for a minute. What about straight? I'll give you an example. I have a rule in my, and I don't have a lot of rules about my daughter's body. I really want her to make choices about.
How old is she?
10.
Okay.
So I don't make choices. I want her to be able to make a lot of choices. I have one of the few rules I have is no perms, right? That's just a rule. If you want to get a perm, you can do that when you're 18.
Right.
I hope by then you will not want to.
Well, and also, because let's be clear. I mean, I've been wearing my hair like this for 23 years. But I no shade on anyone that chooses to do whatever they want to with their hair to express who they say they are. It's really about intention, right? I'm concerned about the emotional well-being of black women. Are they straightening their hair because of an intention that is not about their own expression of beauty?
And I guess what I'm asking is, how do you tease that out?
Yeah, that was a good one. But here's the thing: by the time your daughter is 18.
But I mean now.
Well, right now, also what's
let me make it clear.
Okay.
She'll come to me and say, because it's happened before. Every once in a while, she wants to straighten her hair, and her mom and I are like, we have reservations about it.
Like
right?
pressing it, doing a surface change, not a chemical change.
You can undo that in the swimming pool. I mean, you can undo that.
Yeah.
However, and she's like, I love my hair. I value what you all taught me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But sometimes I just want to look different.
Yeah. Right.
My worry, though, is one, that
what the motivation is.
What the motivation is for, and two, how the world responds. Because if all them times she got braids and everything else, and then the one time her hair is straight and she goes to grandma's house, and they're like, oh my God, baby, your hair looks so pretty. Right. It reinforces and undoes a whole lot of work that we spend time trying to do. And how do you navigate that?
Part of that is having a black girl. Mine is 23, you've got a little one. This is part of what our experience is. The beautiful thing about this moment now, there are products and tools that were never here before that can healthfully, if your daughter wants to change her, it's one of the things that's beautiful about black hair, to me, is that it can change shape and textures like it's magic. Yeah. With some tools and some products, you can do it without hurting yourself, right? So by the time she's 16, 17, or 18, she won't have to chemically change her hair if she wants to wear it straight, if that is what makes her feel happy for that day.
Yeah.
And the next day she could wear it like this.
Right.
And I think that's the
And
other
you-
thing.
and
I
you-
think there's a jealousy about that too. Like in terms of that Eurocentric, they can't magically change their hair with some water and a hot comb. Like you give me 15 minutes, I can go back there and come out, like a Brett girl.
Right.
And then come out like Angela Davis. That's part of the plethora of beauty options that we have now. And I think if we continue to celebrate and expand our celebration, right, and our beauty, then it will start to normalize others and not look at it as a problem. It's their problem. I don't have a problem with black hair. And I think that's part of the language thing is like they have a problem because of the otherness. And the more that we start to talk about how unother it is, but you trust that you are raising your daughter to be who she is. And that she will have moments and there will be things that will happen and people say stuff to her at school. Like it was crazy as my daughter was growing up. But then she became the dope daughter that she is today.
Yeah.
Because she had to go through those things. Builds her character too, where Chelsea or Buffy doesn't have to navigate other
the same
people,
way.
right?
Gia, let me ask you about that, because at the meetup, these are things that will be discussed in addition to seeing stuff, we'll be hearing stuff. People will be talking about natural hair and the politics of it and the experience of it, right?
Yes. So the point that you were making about your daughter, absolutely. One of the most beautiful things about our hair is the versatility. And that versatility spans across people add color, they want to change, they want to put on a wig one day because I want to look a different way. All of that is inclusive, but again, it's about the intention that you talked about. Also, the media element that you were mentioning, we hadn't until now. We're seeing a surge of this, of ourselves represented beautifully and so elegantly, and so not about being strong black women, but about being feminine black women too. It's all, the plethora of it is being expressed and shown and accepted.
Yeah.
And that's what's important for your daughter is growing up in a time where that is visible and that's out. Even our boys are growing up in a time where their president looks like them. So the possibility is there. The permission to dream for that is there because it's happening. And yes, all of these things, this and other conversations happen. We talk about relationships and our hair. We talk about jobs and our hair.
That's real.
That's
All of
real.
that is real.
That's absolutely real.
Oh, I can imagine. Well, I can't wait for people to come check this out. The meetup.
Curl Fest.
Curl Fest is when?
It's on June 22nd.
June 22nd.
Sunday, June 22nd, in the unofficial mecca of natural hair, Brooklyn's Prospect Park. And we are so excited to have our...
And men are welcome.
Men are welcome. Y'all are part
All
of
those
this.
sisters there?
Yeah.
Oh,
I don't think we're going to be able to keep them
that was
out.
the thought process I had when I asked. I just wanted to be, we didn't want to be creeps, you know what I mean? But yeah, bro, if you know what I know, you'd be at Prospect Park on the 22nd
Sunday, yeah.
of June. That's this Sunday.
That's this Sunday.
This Sunday, June 22nd. Make sure you come. Curl Fest is going to be
That's
dope. Great
Hair you can
conversations,
put your
great
hands
images.
in.
It's going to be, yes, right.
Yes.
Yes, and it stay there. All right, last comment coming in from Candace. She says, I love my natural hair and that my husband supports my natural hair. And as an aside, it's pretty cool to see Michaela Angela Davis making corny jokes. Enjoying the panel. I'm enjoying the panel too. We got to have more conversations like this all the time.
All the time.
Oh, we definitely will. Thank y'all for coming.
Thank you for
Always good
having
to
us.
see y'all. Thank you all for joining us. You can get more information about the meetup, about the Curl Fest in our resource well. Stay here at HuffPost Live. So many more great conversations coming up.